When a mall manager kicked Shaquille O'Neal out for no reason, the world watched in shock. But what Shaq did next turned humiliation into hope and left everyone speechless. It was an ordinary Saturday afternoon at the prestigious Clearwater Galleria in Tampa, Florida. The sun shone bright through the glass-paneled ceilings, casting golden patterns on the polished floors. Shoppers bustled about, their arms laden with bags from high-end stores, the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. Amidst the crowd, a familiar figure strolled casually, his towering frame commanding attention. It was Shaquille O'Neal, Big Shaq himself. Dressed in a simple hoodie and sneakers, Shaq exuded his trademark charisma, greeting a few stunned fans and pausing for selfies. Children pointed with excitement, their parents smiling at the unexpected sight of the basketball legend. He wasn't there to draw attention, though. He was there for a simple reason, shopping for a birthday gift for his nephew, a watch perhaps, or something unique to celebrate the occasion. But not everyone shared the excitement. From behind the counter of a high-end boutique, the mall manager, a man named Richard Keller, watched Shaq with a furrowed brow. He was middle-aged, sharp-suited, and known among employees for his uptight demeanor. As Shaq moved between stores, Richard's gaze never left him. To Richard, Shaq's casual attire and larger-than-life presence didn't fit the Galleria's image of sophistication. "Excuse me, sir," Richard finally said, approaching Shaq near a luxury watch store. His voice was polite, but there was an edge to it. "Can I help you with something?" Shaq turned, smiling politely. "Just browsing, man. Thanks." Richard didn't back off. "I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave. We've had some complaints about, disturbances." The words hung in the air. A few passers-by stopped, their curiosity piqued. Shaq raised an eyebrow, his expression shifting from confusion to calm composure. "Disturbances?" he asked, his deep voice steady. "I'm just here shopping." Richard hesitated for a moment, then gestured vaguely. "This isn't the kind of place for that kind of behavior. We have to maintain a certain atmosphere." The crowd around them grew. People began murmuring, some pulling out their phones to record the exchange. A young woman nearby chimed in, "He's not doing anything wrong, he's just walking around." But Richard was unyielding. "Sir, please, if you don't leave, I'll have to call security." Shaq's face remained calm, but a flicker of disappointment passed through his eyes. He glanced around at the growing crowd, some of whom looked outraged, while others appeared too shocked to speak. Without raising his voice or making a scene, Shaq turned to Richard and said, "All right, man, I'll leave." He walked toward the exit, his head held high as whispers of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Someone called out, "This isn't right," but Shaq didn't respond. His calm, dignified demeanor only made the moment more poignant. As the glass doors closed behind him, the mall seemed to hold its breath. Phones buzzed with posts and videos documenting what had just unfolded. For many, it was a surreal moment. How could someone like Shaquille O'Neal, a universally beloved icon, be treated this way? What happened next would shock everyone watching. Shaq stood outside the mall, his large hands resting on his hips as he looked back at the gleaming entrance. The Florida sun reflected off the glass, but he wasn't focused on the beauty of the scene. Instead, he was reflecting on what had just happened. For all his accomplishments, fame, and respect, he had been reduced to a stereotype in the eyes of someone blinded by prejudice. A couple of fans approached, offering words of support. "Man, that was messed up," one of them said, shaking their head. "Why'd they do you like that?" Shaq offered a small smile. "It's all right," he replied. "Sometimes people need to see things for what they are." But it wasn't all right. Not really. Not for him, and not for anyone else who'd faced similar treatment. As he sat in his car, the frustration bubbled beneath his calm exterior. This wasn't just about him. It was about something bigger, something that couldn't be ignored. He picked up his phone, opening the camera app. For a moment he hesitated, staring at his reflection in the lens. Then, in a deep, steady voice, he began to speak. "Hey everybody, I want to share something that just happened to me. I was at the Clearwater Galleria just trying to buy a gift for my nephew when the manager told me I had to leave, said I was disturbing the atmosphere. Now I'm not angry, but I do think we need to talk about why stuff like this still happens." He recounted the incident briefly, his tone measured and calm. There was no bitterness, no outburst, just an honest account of his experience. His words carried the weight of someone who had seen and experienced more than he ever should have. I'm sharing this because it's not just about me. It's about everyone who gets judged for things they can't control. I want us to think about how we treat each other, about what kind of world we're building for our kids. We can do better. We have to do better. He ended the video with a small nod, a subtle but powerful gesture. After hitting upload, he put the phone down and leaned back in his seat. He wasn't sure what would come of it, but he knew it was important to speak out. Within minutes, his phone began buzzing relentlessly. Comments, likes, and shares poured in. People were outraged, not just fans of Shaq, but ordinary people who resonated with his message. Influencers began resharing the video, adding their own stories of discrimination. Celebrities chimed in, voicing their support. The video spread like wildfire, with hashtags like #Do Better, #Stand with Shaq, and #Clearwater Discrimination trending across platforms. News outlets picked up the story, and soon the Clearwater Galleria was at the center of a social media storm. As the hours passed, Shaq watched the reactions pour in. It wasn't about fame anymore. It was about starting a conversation. But in the back of his mind, he knew this was just the beginning. Words alone weren't enough. It was time to turn the spotlight into action. By the next morning, Shaq's video had become the talk of the nation. News anchors replayed the clip on every major network, their voices tinged with disbelief and outrage. Social media timelines overflowed with discussions, as ordinary people, influencers, and even celebrities voiced their support. Memes, hashtags, and debates dominated the digital landscape, turning what had started as a quiet incident into a full-blown movement. Meanwhile, at the Clearwater Galleria, the fallout was immediate. Foot traffic dwindled as customers boycotted the mall in solidarity with Shaq. Several stores reported receiving calls and emails from frustrated patrons, demanding to know what steps were being taken to address the incident. The manager, Richard Keller, became an unwilling symbol of outdated prejudices, his name dragged through headlines and hashtags alike. But Shaq wasn't interested in vilifying anyone. While he appreciated the outpouring of support, he also knew the moment called for something bigger, something constructive. As he scrolled through the thousands of messages pouring in, one comment caught his eye. It was from a local community leader named Tamika Johnson, who ran a non-profit organization that provided resources to underprivileged families in the Tampa area. Her message was simple: Shaq, let's turn this into something positive. Let's show them what unity looks like. Inspired, Shaq reached out to her. Within hours, the two were on a video call, brainstorming ideas. The plan they came up with was bold but powerful: a massive charity event right in the parking lot of the Clearwater Galleria. They envisioned food trucks, live music, free school supplies for kids, and donations to local charities, all in celebration of diversity and inclusion. Tamika quickly rallied her network of activists and organizers, while Shaq used his platform to spread the word. "We're not just talking about change," he announced in a follow-up video. "We're making it happen. If you're in the Tampa area this Saturday, come out and be part of something special." The response was overwhelming. Businesses offered to sponsor the event, local artists volunteered to perform, and countless individuals pledged their time and resources to help. Even celebrities began tweeting their support, some hinting they might make surprise appearances. But the real impact was the unity it inspired. People of all races, backgrounds, and walks of life came together, united by a shared vision of a better future. The hashtag #ClearwaterUnity began trending, replacing the earlier anger with hope and excitement. As Saturday approached, the stage was set for something extraordinary. For the first time in days, Shaq felt a sense of calm. He had taken an act of discrimination and transformed it into a movement, and now it was time to bring that movement to life. Saturday dawned with a buzz of activity in the Clearwater Galleria parking lot. The usually quiet space had been transformed into a vibrant hub of life and energy. Volunteers worked tirelessly to set up booths, unload supplies, and arrange tables. Food trucks lined the perimeter, filling the air with the tantalizing aromas of barbecue, tacos, and freshly baked goods. A stage had been erected at the center, complete with sound equipment for speeches and performances. Shaq arrived early, his larger-than-life presence a beacon of excitement for the organizers. Dressed in a simple t-shirt emblazoned with the words "Unity in Action," he greeted everyone with a warm smile and a handshake. He had a way of making people feel at ease, despite the overwhelming attention that came with his fame. By mid-morning, the parking lot was packed with people. Families arrived with children in tow, their faces lighting up at the sight of free school supplies and games. Community organizations handed out information about their services, while performers took turns on stage, filling the air with music, poetry, and stories of resilience. The energy was electric. People of all races, ages, and backgrounds mingled, united by a shared sense of purpose. Conversations flowed easily as strangers became friends. It wasn't just an event. It was a celebration of what the world could look like when kindness and respect took center stage. Around noon, Shaq took the stage. The crowd erupted into cheers as he waved, his towering figure commanding attention even without a microphone. When the applause finally quieted, he began to speak. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady and heartfelt. "Thank you for showing up, for standing together, and for proving that we're stronger when we're united. What happened earlier this week wasn't right. But what's happening here today? This is how we make it right." His words resonated deeply. He spoke about his own experiences, not as a superstar, but as a man who had faced judgment for reasons beyond his control. He called for understanding, for compassion, and for a commitment to doing better, not just in moments of outrage, but in everyday life. "We can't change the past," he said, "but we can change what happens next. Let's be the example our kids look up to. Let's show them what it means to treat everyone with respect." The crowd erupted into applause, some people wiping tears from their eyes. Shaq stepped back, letting the moment sink in before gesturing for Tamika to join him. Together, they presented a check to her non-profit organization, the funds raised entirely through donations from the event. It was a gesture of hope, a tangible step toward a better future. As the day went on, the event only grew in size and spirit. Celebrities made surprise appearances, from actors to athletes, all lending their support to the cause. Local news crews captured the joy and unity of the moment, broadcasting it to viewers across the country. The Clearwater Galleria, once the site of division, had become a symbol of change. And while the mall management had yet to comment publicly, the power of the event was undeniable. People left the parking lot that evening with full hearts and a renewed sense of purpose. But Shaq knew the story wasn't over yet. The real challenge would be turning this momentum into lasting change. By Sunday morning, the Clearwater Galleria management team was in crisis mode. The event in their parking lot had drawn thousands, and the videos flooding social media painted a stark contrast to the mall's earlier actions. What was once a symbol of exclusivity now faced public condemnation, with headlines like "Clearwater Galleria faces backlash for discrimination" dominating the news cycle. Richard Keller, the mall manager whose actions had sparked the incident, sat in his office, nervously scrolling through his phone. Every notification felt like another jab. Emails from corporate, messages from irate store owners, and comments demanding accountability. Outside his office door, staff whispered about the possibility of resignations and layoffs as the mall's foot traffic continued to decline. Corporate executives, keenly aware of the financial implications, scheduled an emergency press conference. They needed damage control, and they needed it fast. On Monday morning, the Clearwater Galleria released a public statement. It was polished and carefully worded, expressing regret for the incident and committing to a review of policies to prevent future occurrences. Richard Keller, notably absent from the press conference, was quietly reassigned to another position. But the public wasn't buying it. Comments on the mall's social media pages ranged from skepticism to outright anger. "An apology isn't enough," one user wrote. "What are you actually going to do to make things right?" Shaq, who had been following the developments closely, decided it was time to weigh in. In a video response, he addressed the mall's statement with the same calm but firm demeanor he had shown throughout the ordeal. "I appreciate the apology," he began, "but words alone don't create change. Actions do. I'm not here to cancel anyone. I'm here to encourage growth. So here's my challenge to the Clearwater Galleria. Partner with the community. Host events, support local businesses, and prove that you're committed to making this mall a space for everyone." The video was met with widespread approval. People admired Shaq's ability to remain composed and solution-focused, even in the face of discrimination. His words carried weight, and they set a clear expectation for the mall's next steps. The pressure was on, and the mall's executives knew it. Within days, they announced plans to host monthly community events, each focusing on a different aspect of inclusion and support. They partnered with Tamika's nonprofit and other local organizations, pledging to donate a portion of their revenue to causes that promoted diversity and equity. It was a start, albeit a small one. But for Shaq, it was proof that progress was possible when people were willing to listen and learn. Still, he wasn't ready to declare victory just yet. Change, he believed, wasn't about one event or one apology. It was about consistency and commitment. And he intended to keep the spotlight on Clearwater Galleria to ensure they followed through. Months later, the ripple effects of Shaq's actions were still being felt, not just in Clearwater, but across the country. The Clearwater Galleria had begun its transformation, holding true to its promise of community engagement. Monthly events filled the mall with the kind of energy and diversity it once shied away from. Foot traffic returned, and with it came a new sense of purpose among shoppers and store owners alike. For Shaq, the journey had been about more than addressing one incident. It had been about creating a model for how individuals, communities, and businesses could confront prejudice and rebuild trust. He had turned a moment of personal humiliation into an opportunity for collective growth. One afternoon, Shaq received an email from Tamika. Attached was a photo from a recent community event at the Galleria, a group of children from underserved neighborhoods standing in front of a colorful mural they had painted together, their smiles wide and bright. The mural, titled "Together We Rise," depicted hands of all colors and sizes lifting one another up, with the words "Unity in Action" boldly written across the top. Tamika's email read, "Shaq, this wouldn't have happened without you. Thank you for showing us what's possible." Shaq smiled as he read the message. It wasn't about the accolades or the recognition. It was about knowing he had helped spark something meaningful. He thought back to the day he was escorted out of the mall, how disappointment had weighed heavy in his chest. Now that moment felt like a distant memory, replaced by the pride of seeing people come together to demand and create change. He decided to pay a surprise visit to the Galleria. Walking through its now lively halls, he noticed the mural displayed prominently near the food court. Families gathered around it, taking pictures and pointing at the vibrant colors. A little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve, asking, "Mommy, what does unity in action mean?" "It means working together," the mother replied, "even when things are hard." Shaq lingered for a moment, unseen by most. It wasn't about being recognized, it was about witnessing the impact. He nodded in quiet satisfaction and turned to leave, his heart full. As he stepped outside, a reporter approached, mic in hand. "Mr. O'Neal, do you think this has all been worth it?" she asked, her tone curious but respectful. Shaq paused, looking out at the bustling parking lot where the charity event had taken place months earlier. "Worth it?" he repeated, his voice thoughtful. "Every second of it. Because change isn't just about one person or one moment. It's about everyone showing up, doing their part, and believing we can do better. That's what this is about." With that, he walked to his car, the Florida sun shining brightly above. The road ahead was still long, but Shaq knew one thing for sure: progress had been made, and the momentum would carry on.